call the meeting of March 14th, 2016 of the Canby Planning Commission to order. Please stand for the invocation and flag salute. Please bless this meeting and all the participants. Arrive safely and go home safely. Allow us to be wise in our decisions and as well as fair. In your name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. We're going to do one thing that we normally don't do, but we are going to accommodate our good friend Lainey here, and every 30 minutes we're going to take a 2 or 3 minute break so that she can get up and walk around and get going. Okay, so everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the last, well, not the last meeting, but January 11th, apparently. So, pardon me? That's what it says here, January 11th.
That's not on the agenda.
Oh, excuse me, March 14th. I was reading the wrong date, March 14th. So can I have a motion to approve the March 14th minutes?
I'll motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Okay, so today we're going to have a busy schedule this evening, so we're
Chair,
going...
there is 2 sets of minutes.
28th also.
Yeah.
2 sets of minutes. So we're catching up.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you. Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the March 28th meeting as well.
Make a motion that we approve March 28th minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So now we have the minutes approved. Just to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything here. Okay. So we're going to consider a request.
Did we skip item 2, or was I not listening for citizen input?
Oh, citizen input. It's been a long day. I've just driven 3,800 miles, so road warrior here. So, is there any citizen input on non-agenda items? Yes, sir. If you'll come forward, write your name
I
down.
won't take too much time. I realize there's a lot of important things.
Oh, well, yours is important as well. So,
My name's Kevin Batchridge. I live at 1070 North Locust in Canby. I'm also here represented with my neighbor, Gail Williams, right next door. And simply put, we just both received in the mail, just in the last few days, a notice of public hearing request for comments for a minor division of a lot right across the street from my property. And so we're trying to get into the process to know what we need to do to be able to make our comments, make them heard, have some influence on the process. We're not regulars at Planning Commission meetings, so I'm looking for a little bit of guidance and maybe a little hand-holding from you all and those kinds of things so that we get heard and so forth. And that's really kind of where we are.
okay. Well, don't feel alone about not attending very many planning commission meetings. We know how exciting they are from our point of view, but Brian, maybe you can help this gentleman out with the process.
First of all, the notice that you've gotten, if you read it carefully, does indicate that if you want to get something back, some comments, the best thing to do is put it in writing. And there's a date due on that if you want it to go in the packet for the Planning Commission. I don't know what that date is, but it's about 12 days prior to the hearing date that's indicated on that letter.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you don't make that deadline, you can turn in whatever you would like in a written form up to the day of the hearing, and you can bring it in. It's just always better if they have a time to read it ahead of time.
And to get it into the staff report.
Right.
That makes sense.
And that's right. It can go into the staff report if you meet that deadline that's on the letter there.
Well, I think that was perhaps part of our first, a little bit of a shock, was it came and we've got about less than a week to comment, which doesn't seem like an adequate enough time for us to, as neighbors,
And it-
to meet and plan. And there's a
Does it
date here
say
that
what?
the staff report will be available for inspection starting Friday, December 18th, 2015. I wonder if that's a typographical error, but if that staff
Yeah,
report's
that's-
been in the
that's a
record
typo
for that
for
many
sure.
months, that seems like we're way behind the curve here, so.
But we'd be happy to talk with you about that
Okay.
if you want to call us at the office tomorrow morning or
Okay,
something.
I can do that, sure. And maybe we could, I don't know, push it out, just give ourselves a little bit of time, our neighbors.
Yeah, we'll see if there's been a gross error in the notice or something like that, so that you have plenty of time.
Okay. Anything else that you can offer in terms of things to look at through the code so that we know what to look for to make sure that
The letter does
developer-
have the criteria sections in the code.
Does.
Those are the sections of the code that you should study if you're trying to address criteria that you're concerned about.
And last question then is the submittal or the packet that the proposed developer has put together is very limited in the amount of information.
We have
When will we
the-
get to start to see those kinds of things?
The full file is of record in our office, and you can visit anytime 8 to 5.
Is it online?
And you're more than welcome. No,
No,
the application submittal materials are
That's all
in
I
the
have,
file, and you need to come visit and look at the file itself in the office. We only put the staff report online when it's prepared.
Okay. Gail, do you have any more questions?
If you're going to speak, you have to
Oh, I'm
come
sorry.
forward.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move along to the public hearing, and we will,
Wait.
oh, more. Bob, you were, Bob Backstrom, come forward and, this is a non-agenda item, is that
This is my
correct?
secretary, he's going to take notes.
Oh, okay. I'm going to leave you up here by yourself.
So Bob, is this a non-agenda item that you want to?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not here representing traffic safety. My name is Bob Backstrom. I've lived in Canby for many years. I live on North Birch Street, and I'm chair of traffic safety in town. But I'm not here at their request. I'm just giving you that for my street cred, so I know a little bit about what's going on. I'm concerned. I've addressed you guys in the past about my concern for traffic coming through town, especially on the north side. And these developments here, I'm not specifically addressing any of those applications. I'm just talking in general. I'm going to ask you once again to please be looking ahead, and if you can, if there's such a thing as a master plan other than the transportation safety plan and other city plans. One of the things that you guys may or may not know is that in 1990, there were 900 cars going around that bypass territorial from 99 over to Birch, down Birch, out Knightsbridge Road, and then out west of town. And in 2009, there were 2,800. This is a day, per day. And in 2014, it was 4,000 a day coming by Willow Creek on Territorial. Many of them in the early mornings. These are commuters from out of town going through town. And they'd rather not go through Canby with the lights. They don't want to get at Barlow and get into that intersection. They don't want to go to Aurora. And they don't want to go on 205. Many of them are from southeast Portland, Oregon City, Gladstone, all those areas. They don't want to get into I-5 in that intersection. They'd rather be moving at 30 than stopped for a while. and I know this because I live there and I've talked to many, many people. Trucks go through there and they're always saying, my GPS takes me here, this is the way it is. And we know people who live in Southeast Portland on Harold Street, and he goes to McMinnville right by my house on Birch. That's the way they go. What I'm getting at here is when Redwood is developed out, which is going to be fairly soon, I'm thinking, at least in the next 5 to 10 years or whatever, that intersection at Redwood and Territorial is going to be a busy one. And in order to say, I know that the Traffic Safety Commission has been toying with the idea of recommending a four-way stop there. One of the reasons we're not is because that four-way intersection doesn't align properly. The road going into the Public Works area is off-center from Redwood, and one of the requirements for four-way stops is that these intersections must be aligned fairly properly. So I don't know, you guys, I know that you don't set this policy, so I'm not asking you to do anything, but it's nice to be heard, and if we're on television and the public knows about this, it's a good time for me to get the word out that wouldn't it be nice if someday developments could be responsible for doing some things that are remote from their development, like maybe help realign that intersection, and so that the traffic flow at that intersection will be safer because of all the homes and the number of vehicles, and those vehicles, as you know, represent trips. So 10 new vehicles is probably 35 trips a day rather than just 10. And those are all going to be complications for the neighborhoods on the north side, so I'm concerned about that. Those are pretty official numbers that I gave you. They're pretty accurate. And then the last thing I want to say is I'm also chair of the neighborhood association in the northwest corner of Canby called Riverside Neighborhood Association, and I have friends in the northeast Canby Neighborhood Association. And I don't know if any of the applicants tonight have requested or held a neighborhood meeting, and I thought that was part of the requirements for applications for annexations. And I don't want you to answer that. I'm just raising that, and I hope you'll address it in your deliberations.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, John Serla would like to.
When we met on the 66-acre development that borders 99E, south of Territorial, 99E, that whole kind of wetland area in there that is going to be developed, I brought up that very subject of my concerns about traffic at that intersection of Redwood and Territorial too. So I certainly can relate what you're saying to. I personally don't like another light, but I'm afraid it's going to be a necessary evil in the future. It's unfortunate that we can't. I attended a meeting a number of years ago from Canby citizens about things they would like to see done in Canby, and one of them was a better connection between the freeway and 99E. But it doesn't appear that there's anything in the immediate future for that for relief, but it would be certainly nice if we could bypass a lot of traffic around North Canby.
And then the Scott property, that's going to put another 150 trips a day on that neighborhood.
Yes.
Thanks for all you do, you guys. It's a tough job, and I appreciate all the time, how seriously you take this.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now, any other input on non-agenda items? Okay. So we will now consider a request for a site and design review for the proposed Sequoia Grove Industrial Park, DR 16-02. So the matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please step forward to the microphone at the appropriate time. State your name and interest in the matter. Please be sure to sign the testimony sheet. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. First, we'll have the staff report, and then any questions that we might have. And then we will open the public hearing for testimony. Proponents shall have not more than 15 minutes to speak. Opponents, not more than, I got this out of order here, 5 minutes each. And those thought to be neutral on the matter will be given 5 minutes each. The applicant will then have 10 minutes for rebuttal. At that time, I will close public testimony. We will have questions, if any, by the hearing body, and then we will have discussion. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date that you will receive. So does anybody have any questions about how we're going to proceed? Okay. At this time, I would also ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest to please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing on the present matter.
Conflict.
Okay. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. So I will disclose that I did have some earlier contact today with the city attorney, getting some clarification on some legislation that was recently passed concerning how we will move forward with annexation without a vote of the people, which we have done in the past. So, having said that,
Okay.
Ryan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Thank Laney for preparing really quickly today, a little PowerPoint. And so this first slide here kind of shows you the empty field. Let's see if this one doesn't. Up in this 7-acre area here is where the apartment complex that you saw previously is going, and down here is where the Sequoia Industrial Park is proposed. You see Fred Meyer here, the bend in the roadway, and then the adjacent property that's developed here with trend buildings A, B, and C, and I guess they're building a third building now. And Shimadzu's on there to the south. This is a site plan that's proposed, and what they've indicated is a site and design review here that is going to propose 3 different buildings in 2 phases. And so the building up close to the street, which is Building A, is indicated to be in Phase 2. And the first phase is the 2 buildings B and C that are in the rear of the site. And they're indicating that the buildings are going to accommodate warehousing and manufacturing uses with the accompanied office spaces that most businesses would have. And otherwise, they're speculative buildings. We do not know the exact use or tenant of any that will go into any of these buildings. And they're also building them in a way that they can accommodate a single tenant or be demised into multiple tenant spaces in each of the buildings. You'll also see in one of the drawings here that they're proposing many warehouse or storage bays where the big doors go up on the side of the buildings. In fact, our ordinance requires 3 parking areas for loading, and they're actually providing 22 of them. And so there's the potential of accommodating fairly heavy truck traffic on this particular parcel, and whatever will go into these buildings. see if there was anything else I wanted to point out on here. The applicant's proposing a 6-foot sidewalk along the frontage along Sequoia Parkway, and they are sharing a driveway at this location that will serve both as an exit from the apartment complex that comes in here and can come out, and then serving their site with the 3 buildings and circulation internally to meet their needs through that same driveway. We just heard tonight, or late today, that there is an underground electric vault apparently somewhere near the center of this proposed driveway that no one knew about until recently. And so they're going to be exploring whether they can accommodate the drive, since it is underground, or whether they might need to move the drive to provide consistent access to that underground electric vault, or whether the electric vault can be relocated, which may be very expensive. And I bring that up because the driveway currently is aligned with the Wilco driveway, I believe it is. It's directly across the street. And so it's always preferable, and that's what they've done and attempted to do up till now, is to align the driveway with one that's across the street. So we'll be exploring how to solve that particular problem this late in the stage, and wanted you to at least be aware of it. And it could possibly result in this driveway being slightly relocated to the southeast as one possibility to make this all work, knowing that that underground vault is there. I think I'll just go ahead and show you the rest here so we keep moving. So this shows you a building elevation on the largest building, which is up in the front, Building A, and gives you an idea of those loading bays that are a good part of the front part of these buildings. But it also shows that there's, it's kind of hard to see down below, but it shows you the construction method with the tilled-up concrete, and they'll have a steel roof with insulation and such. And they have these office spaces that are kind of indented and give some extra entrance or aesthetic appearance to the front of these buildings. And they have the color code indicated here that seems very pleasing for the area. Another one of the Building B west elevation. Smaller buildings, but still accommodating various office spaces and loading bays as well. This is another aerial view, like we pointed out earlier, and this one here can show you the other driveway across the street and where they're currently trying to align that shared driveway between the apartments and this particular use. I might mention that the applicants, being the same property owner of both of these sites, remind you that there were 2 different legal lots of record as a part of the apartments and the industrial site. However, those legal lots of record are not the areas that they're developing. So they are adjusting those lots. And in order to do that, they'll probably have to replat, since this is a platted area, to implement a lot line adjustment that has been approved previously with the rezoning of the apartment complex. And we've indicated that as a condition of approval, that they get that taken care of before any building permits will be issued on this. Staff's review of this did indicate that we felt that it was in full conformance with our comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance, and pending recordation of that replat of the 2 lot boundaries so it matches their proposed developments. We find that they've met our compatibility matrix scores that are in the industrial overlay zone that needed to be evaluated. We indicated in the staff report that there were 2 or 3, trying to remember now, options within that matrix that we determined and agreed with the applicant were not applicable. Therefore, that lowered their score slightly that they needed to achieve, and thus they were able to achieve the required score. The public services and utility provisions have all been agreed to throughout our pre-application meetings, and the comments that we received back when the application was finally submitted from the utility companies indicate they're all satisfied with the service that's readily available within Sequoia Parkway to provide the needed services for this site as well as the apartment. There were a couple indications from our city engineer that they consider tying certain utilities possibly over to the apartment complex, and that's something that they can at least consider since it's the same property owner developing the things. It's not something they have to do, but it's something that our service providers have suggested that they consider to either assist the city in future maintenance issues or possibly a more efficient way for them to tie things together to serve both of these. We did recommend approval of this, and it was subject to several conditions. I was going to go through those really quick. We talked about the lot line adjustment needing to be done. Another one that we don't want to forget, because it was made as a condition of approval of the rezoning of the land at the apartment complex, that we have a deed restriction get filed of record on the industrial park property that which restrict the allowed uses to those indicated as outright permitted in the M1 zone, even though this is an M2 zone property, with the idea of trying to assure the success and compatibility of an apartment complex within an industrial area, and that we wouldn't have the potential for heavy industrial uses going right next to it. The applicant was more than happy to agree to that restriction, but we need to follow up and make sure it happens through a deed restriction, so if the property ever changes hands or gets sold, we always have that protection there in the type of uses that are permitted on this particular property that we're reviewing right now. Was just talking with the applicant on this third tonight about, we have a Public Works design standards that we adopted in 2012, and sometime after that we discovered that there was a conflict between a maximum 36-foot wide driveway width in the industrial park and the 40-foot wide standard that we currently have in the city's existing access provisions in our development code. And we haven't yet picked one and changed it officially, although in practice we have been following the new standards, which was 36 feet. The applicant may mention tonight, one of the representatives, that with the amount of trucks that they're expecting to come in and out of this site, they feel like it's possible the 36 width that we've adopted in those new design standards may be very limiting and difficult. And we've indicated in our staff report that, and in the traffic study that was done, that they should be doing template analysis of their site to make sure that the anticipated trucks that will come inside there can circulate internally and, if necessary, get in and out without driving over either their monument signs or the curbs and those kind of things. So we'll be looking at that closely at the construction stage to see whether it's suitable with our city engineer's input and such, whether we can allow them to choose which standard, because we have 2 standards right now in our ordinance. I mentioned the 6-foot sidewalk they're building along with a 5-foot planter strip, where currently there are street trees planted along Sequoia Parkway. So we discussed them trying to protect those trees and transplanting them so we don't lose the trees that are already there.
Those are fairly new trees, as I recall.
They are.
Are those part of the planting program also? The ones that were planted for specific species?
Yeah, they were a demonstration, basically.
And
Yeah.
that's on that side of the street also?
Right, I believe so. The traffic study indicated that although generally there is no parking allowed along Sequoia, that we wanted to make sure the applicant was aware, but putting in a condition that there is no parking allowed on Sequoia, and that we may be actually signing that as a city to make sure that that doesn't happen. And it's primarily because there's a curve in Sequoia, and it makes it more difficult to see with the sight distance as you come out at the driveway openings if you have any cars parked near there. We do need, in all of our industrial sites, monitoring manholes for whatever is leaving the site in the sanitary sewer system. So we have a condition of approval indicating that. And the site distance areas at the driveways need to be kept clear of obstructions. So that would include a possible monument sign, which they've discussed, a possible location at the right side of the driveway as you exit. Let's see. They need a street opening permit for any work within the right-of-way. And we already talked about the traffic circulation, making sure their trucks can turn around on site. And there was missing information on the actual lumen output in the lighting plan for the light fixtures on the site, both in the parking lot and on the building facade. And so we can get that information at the construction stage when they turn in the final plans. Otherwise, the lighting plan looked great, had even lighting across the entire site. And so I think that's staff's presentation. Did want to mention we got one letter in. I set up the dais that came in today. I think it came in today from, was it Scott McCormick from Trend Building C, the adjacent property owner that's developed a very positive letter indicating strong support for this development and the layout as proposed. So I think with that, I'm done.
Okay. Laney, do you need to take a quick break? You're good? Okay. Any questions for Stan?
I actually have one quick one, Brian, and this is something that after we dealt with the apartments on that same lot, I noticed that there was something in here about that left turn lane again, coming off of 99 onto Sequoia. Did we get a distance that they're actually going to extend that? And did we see if that's going to affect that business that's there? Or is that an ODOT thing?
Yeah,
Did we do anything about that?
there's not any further answers. I think we had either an email or something back and forth on that. And until it's actually designed, an engineer lays out that and or the signal light and the left turn bay at Hazeldale and Sequoia, and possibly the widening of a driveway coming out of Fred Meyer at the same time. When all of that is designed, then we'll know what distance is going to be. ODOT had indicated that 300 foot would be fine. I don't know what it is today, I don't remember, but 300 foot was what they were requesting to accommodate these two developments. But they talked about the fact that when more developments occur in our industrial park, it might be best if it was more than 300 foot. So there was going to be some consideration as to whether we should do more than the 300, knowing that eventually it may have to be extended again.
Is that something we're going to have to say in, or is that
We'll-
ODOT's going to say?
We'll
this is what we
have
want?
some say in that, I guess. It's a matter of efficiency. I mean, do you do it once or do you do it twice?
I'd rather look at it
Or
once.
more, right,
You know.
exactly. And at this point, we're not quite sure when it's going to happen. In the staff report, we did indicate that this development, it's the same property owner, can either share in the cost of that contribution. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was, I don't remember the dollar figure. It wasn't that much money.
wasn't
$700 or something.
Yeah.
Or they can just contribute and pay the city, which was an approved condition of approval with the apartment complex. It doesn't matter to us how they divide that up.
Thank you, Brian.
So I did have a question on going back to the underground vault. Now, as a condition of approval, are we going to have to require resolution of that issue?
I don't think you do. I wanted you to be aware of the issue so that you weren't completely surprised if for some reason we end up having to slightly shift the driveway location. Because at this stage, I just heard about it late today, and I have no idea what the primary utility company, which is the electric department, have no idea what they think about it. And maybe they think it's fine if trucks drive over this underground vault. I don't know. And so that's what they were going to find out. And but they had started some discussions trying to figure out if it would be best if it was relocated, or I think there was another issue in that the current driveway is, and its adjacent sidewalks that are on both sides coming internally into the site, one to the apartment complex and one to the industrial site, puts that sidewalk awfully close to a building that's proposed on the apartment site. And so they may be looking at that aspect as well, and whether it would be better to shift it just a bit. So we've got one property owner, again, working on two developments at the same time, and their intent is to try to get started on grading and that kind of thing so they can have efficiency when they're developing these two spots. Even though they've kind of come in a separate sequence here, they're trying to get them to coalesce as well as they can.
Any more questions for staff? Okay. We'll now move along to opening the hearing for the applicant. If you'll sign in, state your name and address.
My name is Greg Blefkin. I'm with VLMK Engineering and Design, and I'm representing the applicant, IDM, in the development. We are the architect and engineer for the project. Brian did a good job of summarizing the proposal. It is a phased development, and we are looking at building the back two buildings first, and to make it efficient, we're doing both the apartment and the phase one of the industrial development in one, at least doing the mass grading together. Whether we have the same contractor, there will be a different contractor that'll do the industrial part than do the apartments. In reviewing the staff report, we don't take exception to any of the conditions. The one point that Brian and I did speak about, we did speak about the drive. The electrical vault was actually brought up by the other applicant, consultant, who we have been working with. That electrical vault is just north of that property line. Which puts it on the inbound lane of the drive. And as Brian mentioned, with that sidewalk coming out on both sides of that drive, it gets real close to the siding of the one apartment complex that fronts Sequoia. We are looking now at shifting the drive to the east. We need to reach out with Kern McLeod and the city to confirm what is a reasonable offset between the drive on the opposing Wilco site and our site, and can we avoid the vault? Maybe we'll be able to avoid the vault by offsetting the drive and maybe shifting the sidewalk around it. We're looking into that. We're also, we do want to make sure that we have a safe access for the larger vehicles that will be accessing the site. We're not anticipating significant truck traffic with the back buildings, the Phase 1 buildings, B and C. We have provided a shared dock for those buildings. It's actually between buildings A and B. The more significant truck traffic is anticipated to occur with the second phase, Building A. And laying out our truck turning templates for inbound and outbound traffic, for that matter, truck traffic. The templates just work within a 40-foot drive, but it does cause southbound traffic on Sequoia to swing out into the oncoming lane. Not a real safe situation, but it happens all the time. So we will be pushing for the larger drive width, and we'll work with Kern McLeod to make sure that we're on the same page with that. Utility-wise and services, the site, both sites are served with 2 water stubs. Unfortunately, the water stub for the industrial side is just west of our drive, or just north of our drive. We're looking now at the possibility of either sharing that tap with the apartment complex, or constructing another tap to serve the industrial development. That is an 8-inch tap, and we will need that for our site, for the larger buildings. For the apartment complex, they can get away with something less. So we'll work with the city to see if we can't come up with a constructive way to either utilize that tap and share that tap. Sanitary, we both have our own taps. The apartment complex will take their service with the tap to the north. Our tap is just south of our drive, and so we'll have separate monitoring wells for that. Stormwater, we will be treating stormwater. Roof runoff will go directly into dry wells. Our stormwater from runoff from the site will be treated in filtered catch basins. The original plan that we submitted indicated swales along the common property line, and based upon our grading and storm analysis, those swales would not be efficient, so we are collecting the stormwater in catch basins that have treatment within them before we route them into dry wells that are going to be positioned throughout the site. Traffic, we did the traffic study in a combined effort with the apartment complex. The majority of the traffic and the trips will be coming from the apartment complex. The levels of service, and there was discussion about the queuing lane onto Sequoia and 99, and there is some contribution from the industrial development, but not significant. With that, we are, the building elevations, we are providing good articulation and kind of more of an upscale design look with the recessed docks, the recessed entries, stepping the panels to accentuate the elevations, providing some relief in the metal cornice work, and landscaping will complement the buildings and provide a nice buffer between the apartment complex and the industrial development. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Do we have any more proponents? As soon as he's done signing out there, if you can come up, sign in, state your name and address. 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. Thank you for the staff report. Appreciate it. My name is George Dingledine. I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of Shimatsu, the adjoining property owner, neighboring property owner. And on behalf of Shimatsu, we're pleased to voice support for the industrial park and believe it should be approved per staff's recommendation. The traffic impact study, as we've discussed, identifies a few points along Sequoia with poor to failing levels of service, 99 and Hazeldale. And while the applicant is contributing towards the costs to improve these intersections, the ultimate improvements are yet to occur. Sometime in the future, our client plans to develop the remaining portions of their adjacent property and respectfully requests confirmation from the Commission tonight that any such development will not be burdened with a disproportionate share of those costs or otherwise asked to install those improvements as part of their approval.
That some Shimadzu would not be burdened with additional costs? Is that what you're asking?
With disproportionate costs.
Disproportionate?
Yes, sir.
Well, so how are we going to define that? Maybe you can help us there.
It's typically done through the process and done in conjunction with staff and then discussed. It all predicates upon the impacts of those developments. And in our case, although it's yet to be seen what exact use and intensity it's going to be, it would be some factor of that use and the impact and the traffic trips that are generated.
My best response is that if you read our traffic impact study requirements in the code, it very specifically indicates exactly what he has indicated, is that through a traffic study, you evaluate what is a fair proportionate contribution if you're going to go that direction. And so I would say that Shimadzu will have a traffic study performed that will help determine what the fair proportionate amount will be if there is going to be, in fact, a contribution. We also discussed that it's possible that you may wait long enough and the signal will be up. And so another potential is that there may not be any mitigation and there may just be payment of system development charges.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Are there any more proponents for this project? Okay, are there any opponents for this project? Any neutral third parties? Okay. Since there's no rebuttal to be had, so I'm assuming you're good on rebuttal. Okay, so I'm going to close the public testimony. So any questions that you might have for staff or folks?
I don't.
Okay. Neither do I. So there's no additional testimony unless allowed by me. Decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing. So may I have a motion to approve? Mr. Hensley.
I move that we approve DR 16-02 as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, there you go. Good to go. Well, Laney? We're going to take 3 minutes.
Stand myself.
So we're going to consider a request for annexation and zones map amendment for 1.85 acres located at 1850 and 1794 North Redwood Street. That's ANN/ZC 16-01.
I was going to ask if you could ask the audience's permission not to go through the public hearing script again?
Okay.
Or if so, just do it once
I'm
for
gonna do
all 3 annexations?
Does that work for everybody? I'm going to do it one more time and then, but not for the rest, so.
That'd be great.
Could you ask them to turn the mic up a little bit? I'm having a hard time hearing the,
These aren't mics.
oh,
I can talk louder, though.
that'd be great.
I can enunciate, carry to the back of the room.
Brian, too, having a hard time hearing Brian.
Okay. The matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please be prepared to step forward to the microphone at the appropriate time. State your name, mailing address, and interest in the matter. For those people other than the applicants that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please sign in on the sheet or speak up when we call for testimony. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. You may be limited by time for your presentation. Generally, the applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to speak. The proponents will be given 5 minutes each. The opponents will be given 5 minutes each, and those thought to be neutral on the matter will be given 5 minutes each. The applicant will then have 10 minutes for rebuttal. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access and to become a part of the record. All written testimony received both for and against prior to the hearing shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained as indicated in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Everyone present is encouraged to testify, even if it is only to concur with previous testimony. This time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest to please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing on the present matter. Okay. Ex parte contact. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Okay. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any commissioner regarding conflict of interest or ex parte contact? Okay. We'll proceed with the public hearing as follows. Staff report, questions, if any, by the body here. Then we will open the public hearing portion for testimony. Applicant, not more than 15 minutes. Proponents, not more than 5 minutes. Opponents, not more than 5 minutes each. Neutral, not more than 5 minutes each. And then rebuttal by the applicant, if necessary, not more than 10 minutes. We'll then close the public testimony, and then there will be questions by the hearing body. We'll have discussion and deliberation, and no additional testimony unless specifically allowed by the chair, and then we will render a decision. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Brian, let's...
Okay, let's move forward on one of 3 annexations. And before we get started, I did want to share the statement that the city attorney provided you today with the rest of the, and for those at home and listening on TV.
Please.
It concerns the recent legislation, which was Senate Bill 1573, and the impact that it has in relation to the review of these annexations, and the fact that they will not be going forward to a vote of the people. And what he indicated is that in their short session, they passed Senate Bill 1573, became effective on March 15th. And since it is state law, it preempts city laws that would have otherwise required voter-approved annexation. The bill basically disallows our city to refer an annexation to voters if certain criteria are present and met by the applicant. The conditions that must be met in the annexation include that 100% of the landowners to be annexed are in agreement. Every portion of the land that's part of the annexation